The Tech It Up Talk podcast aspires to educate, inform, and inspire educators from teachers to school leaders on tips, tools, and resources to support the integration of technology into classroom instruction.
You ready? Here we go.
You're listening to Tech It Up Talk with Dr. Mac, your host with the most passion for supporting educators from teachers to school leaders with the integration of technology into instruction. And today, we want to welcome you to another episode where we tackle the most impactful topics transforming education today. And I'm thrilled to introduce today's guest, Dr. Travis Taylor, a respected educator and thought leader. Dr. Taylor is a contributor to my book, Get Your Tech Together, Rethinking School Culture in the Digital Age. And today we're diving into his chapter, The Role of Leadership in Shaping School Culture for Technology Integration. It's a must read for anyone passionate about fostering a tech-forward school environment. So I want to welcome you, Dr. Taylor, to the Tech It Up Talk podcast. Come on and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you for allowing me to be on the here on the podcast and to contribute to this effort. My background is I'm a technology and instructional coordinator in Little Rock, Arkansas, Little Rock School District. I've been doing this for quite a while. It's been over, say, 15 years at least. But I started actually in music. My background is instrumental music with band. And so, of course, a lot of musicians, we tend to just, move into technology just because of those spatial gifts and things that we have that music has given us. And so I've always been into technology from the standpoint, it was music that kind of drove me here, recording, multimedia. So that was just a natural pathway for me to get into technology. But I spent a lot of time, most of my time has been with working with teachers and with training and in professional development, but also mainly a lot of my time has been for the most part, it's been with administrators, principals, associate superintendents. And so I've been in that culture a lot, and it's been just interesting to see the interplay between leadership and technology as technology changes, and how we have to be a lot of times the liaison between the classroom and leadership as to how and why technology should go in the classroom.
All right. Yes. And so in your chapter that you wrote in the book that we co-authored together, you talk about leadership, and I want for you to share, like, what role does leadership play in shaping school culture, and what kind of inspired you to go with that direction?
Well, the thing about technology integration, and like I said, having worked with teachers and working at this level, you always see these things where people are talking about grassroots movements, and we're going to lead from the classroom. And those are great things. I think a lot of good that has happened inside of education and K-12 education has been with our teachers and those who have gone to conferences and they've been thinking outside the box and bringing in this technology into the classroom. But there is a limit to what that can do and how well that can go into the educational system as far as into the community of school. And that's because everything still resides with that leadership. And, of course, we have to deal with the elephant in the room, that they're the one who are signing the checks and signing off on the initiatives and giving the okay to green light project. So you can have all of the great groundswell and the things that are happening in the classroom, but ultimately it's going to come down to leadership and how they see it and how they view the technology and if they can see the vision of what the students and how the school can benefit from this integration. So that was the reason, kind of the reason I went that direction, having worked with leadership a lot. And having been in that position where you see the effects of what leadership does as far as how high the integration can go, how wide it can go, is really depending upon the leadership and them seeing that vision. Now, of course, it's our job as educators, and particularly in the classroom with teachers, in this collaboration space, that we have to help them see the vision, because the visioning process is always crucial in leadership. You got to have a vision to where you want to go, what you want it to look like when you get there. But a lot of times, with that collaboration piece with others in the room, you help other people to see, who maybe of a different generation, and they don't understand how this technology can play a role, particularly when we see things on television and social media where everybody's scaring us. And this is going to happen if you jump into the technology, and this may happen with technology. And so what tends to happen is the planning for technology seems to be focused around what do we want, what are we going to do when it goes sideways, and not how do we see this benefiting our students? What are the long-term goals that we can see as far as the educational process when these students graduate, the job field? We have to look beyond those things of what could happen, because if that's just a part of our society.
Right.
Ethic, there's always going to be, in a sense, this ethical space between new technologies and then what's going to happen when someone does something that's inappropriate. We've seen this with the big during the .com era, when the internet really took off, and then we started buying online and started shopping online. But then we started seeing people scam online and steal credit cards online. But we adapted, and what did we do? We learned how to shop. We learned how to govern ourselves in this space. And so I think same thing has to happen in that conversation when we're getting ready to bring technology in, is to, again, we've got to get that vision, and we've got to help those who don't understand the technology to see the vision, to make those better decisions.
Yeah, I like that because, sometimes and when we get to boots on the ground in the classroom, the fear is that students are going to behave a certain way. They have the fears that they may not make the right decision when they're leveraging technology. Maybe they're on YouTube instead of, doing the lesson that they are supposed to be doing. And so we're always sometimes more focused on what can go wrong than to get in. I like to always say fail forward, and actually teach our students how to adapt, and like no one taught them to how to behave or how to act or what to do and how we engage them. So we have to give them those opportunities to fail forward, and also give ourselves those opportunities and give our teachers those opportunities so that they can also be in the position to be uncomfortable with technology. Because first of all, tech is going to happen sometimes, right? So some things are going to happen out of our control, but we can't just not include it or just make it absent so that it will, continue to support student learning. And so that is definitely important. So I want to now talk about your chapter. So in the book, you talk about technology sprawl and this concept about technology sprawl. Can you share an example of what do you mean by technology sprawl?
Well, technology sprawl really is a concept that deals with the fact that, we may not like technology. We may try to hide or try to take ourselves away from certain pieces of technology or things that tend to come into our space. But technology sprawl deals with the fact that technology will creep into every part of our society with or without our permission. And so it doesn't matter how far you want to avoid technology. At some point, it's going to run into you. It's going to catch you. It's going to catch you off guard. So technology starts, particularly when we look at things like, let's take the Chat GPT and AI for instance. When we started that back a couple of years ago, just look at how it sprawled outward through our society. Now everybody has some type of chat bot in their product. Everyone has some type of AI that's summarizing, that's providing insight.
Right.
And so it doesn't matter, what your feelings are about technology or how you try to avoid it. The sprawl means it is going to spread out, and it's like almost like an infection. It just gets into everything in our society.
Yeah, and so I like that, and something else you discussed, which I love the way you phrase digital subcultures. And so, kind of explain what is it? What do you mean by digital subculture, and how is that impactful within the school culture?
Well, that was taken from an article, and it was done. It's actually a research article that was done. But what I gleaned from that was actually that social media now that we have social media and we have the ability and people are grouping together and these like-minded individuals can get together. We've always had subcultures in our society, and particularly in the school. You've always had these groups of kids over here, the groups of kids over there. That you had of course, I was a band geek at one point, so those subcultures were always there. Now with technology, they're more integrated. They're spread across, because you have now students they're not only a part of this school, but the adjacent school and the school across town and the school across state. So these cultures of students now, these in a sense, the subcultures, they're very different in a sense that because of there are no borders. The technology allows it to be much broader, much wider, but it's just that allows people of certain interests to come together, to conversate. But because of social media, those interests now are they're just very fluid. I mean, and you go from there's one group that you go into, there's another group that's similar that you go into, and they just crisscross, and they're constantly talking, they're constantly integrating and moving and changing. So those are things that we have to deal with technology, is because it's not just, again, the band geeks now, and it's not just the jocks, but it is just different groups that are coming together, and fluidly they're just interacting and conversating, sharing ideas. And one of the things that, particularly if you ask any IT director, when they're trying to do things with security and trying to keep the kids out of the most inappropriate things, they get together online and they can find all the proxy sites and they share that stuff. And yes. I mean, it's they know where to go, they know how to pass it. And again, and these are students that may not even have any relationship with each other on a regular basis, but because they have a general need, then they become this group, this entity, and this actually like an organism in a sense, because when you start looking at subcultures in that respect, when I'm talking about in the digital realm, they're kind of like organisms as well.
That's funny that you say that, because I remember in my role as a director of digital learning, we would have students. So we had a tool that that students that teachers could use to help with supporting and kind of keeping students on track and kind of monitoring their work within the classroom and kind of making sure they were on track with websites. But, of course, a kid found this site. It was a kid on YouTube. He couldn't have been more than, 14 or 15 years old, had a whole YouTube channel on how to get around Go Guardian, which was the program that we were leveraging at the time. And so, of course, now they have this big Google site that they've put together and all these different things. And so, I mean, yes, students are going to find ways, and the subcultures are there. That doesn't stop us from moving forward. Now that it just, helps us with amplifying, our support and implementing and helping teachers also create engaging and learning environments so they don't veer off into these other spaces. And so we just have to combat it with a positive way, not just to end it and say, hey, these are some things that are going to affect and interrupt things that happen in instruction, but how do we know that these things are going to happen, and how can we combat this with creating meaningful learning environments? And that's where I think leadership definitely has a strong role to play. The other thing that I love that you talked about in this book is the role of growth mindset. And so what does the mindset shift needs to happen for a school leader to really create a positive digital culture?
Well, that extends from Carolyn Dweck's growth mindset research and conversation. And if most administrators administrators are very familiar with this book and with this concept because they've been reading it and they've been using it within the educational landscape. But the thing about the growth mindset is really it's about how you see your actions, how you see things that you're dealing with, or how you see what may consider a challenge or whatever. And for instance, there's something right now that I'm working on, and it's kind of out of my comfort zone. And I jumped into it because it's something that I really wanted to do, and that's something else I wanted to do at this next level. And I had an opportunity to take part and do it. And before I realized that I had jumped in and took ownership of it, And now I'm, on the hook in a sense for stepping out in this leadership role, for this project. And it took me out of my comfort zone, but the growth mindset allows me to see the perspective of one thing I've looked at is what I've learned from this process. And there's the things that I'm learning. For instance, I've been doing a lot of work with Power BI and doing things with data analysis. And so I kind of jumped out into a project where I'm doing some data analysis, and it's new to me in a sense because it's something that I've not really done on a regular basis. But what I've been learning in the process to get prepared and to present this information and to do this digital storytelling of data, it's what I've learned in my skill set that's starting to allow me to outgrow whatever my apprehensions and fears were about my own abilities and dealing with my own confidence. And so my confidence has now shifted because I took a mindset of that growth mindset of that I'm learning that even with any failures, it was like, it doesn't matter. Look at what you learned, look at what you're learning, and then look at that and let's readjust it the next time because you got to keep going. And so the growth mindset has always been a nice catalyst if for any technology, any a leader, whether it's a principal, an administrator, associate superintendent who has really done anything on a major level or spearheaded an implementation, you're probably going to find growth mindset somewhere in their reading library, or they've been looking at this and reading this, and they have adopted this concept. And I brought that out just because I said, when you look at the research and look at leaders, you're probably going to, again, see that book, that reference somewhere in everybody's in their research, in their references. You're going to see growth mindset somewhere in there because, again, you have to address the fear. And that was one thing that I liked about, and I mentioned here, and I was talking about Dr. Shenniger, and he had to deal with the fact of what he didn't know with technology, but what outweighed that was the fact that his purpose of where he wanted to go for his students. And so he dealt with with the uncomfortability because his end goal was really the students.
Yeah, I love that. The uncomfortability part. A lot of times technology is uncomfortable for some of our school leaders a lot of time. And so we don't always lead with it. It may get delegated for someone else to manage. But when you become a consumer of leading with technology, it helps with creating and really expanding upon that school culture, because it can't just be the people who you're delegating the work to do that leading. It really needs to start from within. And sometimes you got to get uncomfortable to get comfortable with technology, and you don't have to be an expert at it. You could be with small things. And so if you're always depending on the next person, well, that's not for me. Or if we have teachers that are in the classroom that's been teaching for 20, 30 years and like, well, I've been doing it this way for this long and it's got me here, but are we doing a good service for our students? And so we always want to lead with a student first centered mentality. And so if you're not in the work, then you're in the way. And so I remember one of the principals I used to support in the Houston area, that was something he always said to his staff, and it really sticks to me. I love that. Either you're in the work or you're in the way. And so right now we're in a digital age. And so it's really important to be in that work with your staff, with your school, ensuring that you're practicing some of these things. And it doesn't have to be, again, an expert. It could be small things. In other chapters of the book, we talk about professional development, and, you want to lead what you're expecting some of your teachers to be implementing. And when you're running your professional learning opportunities, that you're leading with some of those same expectations that they're doing in their classrooms and modeling for them. Those are great opportunities for that. So thank you for sharing. Now, as technology continues to evolve, how do you see leadership adapting to support sustained integration in schools?
Well, I think once you get past the fear that you of the technology and become familiar with the fact that it's not going anywhere and it's always going to increase, you're going to see more of it. I think you can really begin to see a shift in how you, again, with that vision of, and now your vision can expand and you can go and start visioning beyond, just as long as I can get them to log in, as long as I can get a pull report, we can, I'm getting that ROI, when you so sustainability is, though, you have to look, now you're actually having to look more long term. I think the vision process of where we're going and what we're visioning for, I think that vision now is you're going to have to start looking longer, because of the fact that technology is moving so quickly, and now that AI has ramped that up even more exponentially. I think that the visioning process is going to look a little not necessarily a little different, as much as I think that we're going to have to think and look at of what the end goal is going to look like, not just what it's going to look like, but how long. Whereas, in other words, we, instead of just saying the 2 or 3 year span, 5 to 10 years, because the things are shifting so. And I think that the visioning process really is going to change. Well, the visioning outcome of what we've normally seen, what we vision for. We've got to be able to pivot. I think COVID really kind of prepped us for that, is learning how to pivot. And I think that's part of the process too, as far as sustainability, is you've got to be able to shift when things turn on a dime. In as far as, like I say, with AI shifting the way we do work and what work means, we're going to have to shift quickly a lot of times. And that's the problem with education, is that education tends to adapt a lot slower a lot of times to the things in society as they change. We get behind. And so by the time, we're starting to deal with it, society's already moved on to a whole nother era. But I think because of the shifts that are taking place so fast, I think that we're going to have to start thinking and ramping up more. The other thing I think that is really over is this concept that you really don't have to know anything, and I can just rely on another person, my CIO and my tech director, and those. And I'm not against those positions by any means, but I think a lot of times there have been those who say, "Well, I've got these people, and as long as I can, hit them on the phone, and we can emergency call, I can make sure I think those are great things, but there is coming, I think now is the time that there still has to be a basic level of understanding of the technology. Even if you're not, you don't do prompting, and you're not a coder. Again, you've got to have a level of technology, a comfortability with technology, in leadership now. I think those days are just trying to get by. I think that's gone. And I think the schools and the process is going to suffer, because you've got to be engaged at a much different level. That was one thing I liked about Dr. Bedell, when he said, and I heard him last year, when he told his group, be fearless but not reckless. Don't be afraid to stretch out and to dream and to go out there, but be mindful of what you're doing, and that I believe in systemic thinking. So, be mindful of whatever changes that I'm making, that what's going to happen downstream when I make these changes, or what does that mean when we do this, when we change this over here, what does that look like to all of these other entities that are attached to us? That's why I think I've gotten very interested as far as with data. And I'm always telling people that data is coming from somewhere, it's going somewhere, and it's probably attached to 5 different things that you know nothing about. And so, you have to see things from a systemic level, particularly in leadership, to know what these changes are going to take, what they're going to do when you start implementing them.
Oh, yes. Thank you for sharing that. Now, if listeners could take away one key message from your chapter, what would that be?
I would probably say, I think the thing about the culture, it's really about eliminating the fear. I think that, one of the things that, if you look at those who've led in these instances of implementations and things, that there were these game changers in their districts, they had to address the fear. And one of the things I try to do when I'm teaching, particularly with technology and training, is I try to eliminate the fear. And a lot of people they're afraid of failing with technology. That's what they're really afraid of. They're afraid. Teachers are afraid of looking incompetent, and leaders are afraid of looking incompetent, of not knowing or using technology. And I think that we have to eliminate that fear by encouraging people to be okay when it doesn't go correct, and to learn, why it didn't go like it should, and how can we make it better the next time. But we must eliminate the fear. We can't be paralyzed by that, because, again, technology sprawl is going to push the technology into areas that we're not ready, that we're not considering. And you got to be able to pivot and change and adapt to the technology as it moves.
Okay, well, there's a word for you guys. And so, Dr. Taylor, thank you so much for joining us. But before you go, can you just share with our audience who's listening and probably capture this recording and listen to this podcast later, how they can connect with you and learn more about your work and your leadership strategies?
Well, right now you can reach me on X, and I'm at Instagram at Dr. Underscore Trav27. And so I'm also on Fanbase with that handle, and coming soon to Blue Sky. But mainly you'll find me just in those areas right now. I'm still working on some more things with changing up the podcast and revamping websites and that sort of thing. So I'm in a totally rebranding mode right now.
That's okay. We love a good rebrand, but look,
as
you got
we're
social
working.
media. Right.
Yeah.
We have social media, so they can definitely connect with you on any of those platforms. So thank you again for joining and sharing your insights today. Of course, your chapter in Get Your Tech Together is essential as a resource for anyone looking to build a school culture and truly embrace technology. And so educators, don't you forget to grab your copy. Of course, you can get a copy of our book. It's live on Amazon right now. It's called Get Your Tech Together, Rethinking School Culture in a digital age. And so make sure you grab a copy, dive in deep, read Dr. Taylor's chapter and learn more about those leadership strategies and different transformative ideas. And so I want to thank you guys for tuning in with us and listening to the Tech It Up Talk podcast with Dr. Mack, your host, where we explore how to level up your learning with technology. And then until next time, keep innovating, keep inspiring, and keep leading with tech. And don't forget, get your tech together.
Thank you.